My name is Lena Brooks, and this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about the man who taught me what love felt like, and then taught me what destruction truly meant. It started a year ago. I met Ethan on a rainy Tuesday at a cafe near my office. He was soaked, frustrated, and charming in a way that felt almost cinematic. He had that quiet confidence, the kind of man who didn't need to speak loudly to be heard. He smiled as he ordered a coffee, noticed I was sketching designs in my notebook, and said, "You're an artist?" I blushed and nodded, trying to be. He leaned closer, his eyes curious. "Then you already are." That line. It hooked me instantly. We talked for hours that day. I found out he was a real estate developer, successful, ambitious, and, or so he said, single. He seemed fascinated by my world, by my little dreams and insecurities. He listened in a way no one else ever had. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. The following weeks felt like a movie montage: late-night walks, long drives with rain tapping the windshield, his hand always finding mine. One night, I remember asking him, "Do you really believe in forever?" He smiled, brushed a strand of hair from my face, and whispered, "With the right person? Always." I wanted to be that right person, and he made me believe I was. He told me about his busy life, the pressure of handling a company, and how lonely success felt. I listened, comforted, and slowly, we built a world that revolved around just us. He met my friends, even called my mom once to wish her happy birthday. Everything felt real. Or maybe I wanted it to. The first crack appeared 3 months ago. Ethan started becoming distant, answering texts late, canceling plans, claiming urgent meetings. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself he was stressed. But the feeling of unease grew heavier every day. Then came the excuses. The sudden business trips. The nights he went offline. I tried to trust him. I really did. Because when I'd confront him, he'd pull me close and say, "Lena, you have to stop overthinking. You're the only one I want." And I'd melt into those words, even though something deep inside whispered, "He's lying." A week before the wedding invitation arrived, I noticed a change in his eyes. We were sitting in his apartment, the same one where he'd once told me, "I want you here forever." But that night, he wouldn't even look at me. He sat at his desk, scrolling through his phone, barely responding when I spoke. I finally asked, "Ethan, what's wrong? Are we okay?" He hesitated, then forced a smile. "Of course we are. Why would you ask that?" I studied him. The warmth that used to live in his voice was gone. He kissed my forehead and said he had to work late. I didn't argue. I just nodded, pretending not to notice the unfamiliar perfume lingering on his shirt. Then the next day the invitation arrived. No explanation. No goodbye. Just a courier delivering my heartbreak in a gold envelope. At first, I thought it was a cruel prank. But the card was real. Embossed initials. Hotel address. RSVP details. My fingers went numb. I called him. Once, twice, 10 times. Straight to voicemail. I texted him, "Ethan, what is this? Please tell me it's not true." No reply. I drove to his apartment that evening, my heart pounding with dread. But when I got there, the doorman looked at me with pity. "Mr. Carter moved out last week, ma'am." Moved out? Just like that. No word. No closure. I remember standing in the cold lobby, feeling like a ghost, invisible, unwanted, erased. Days passed, and I couldn't eat or sleep. My best friend, Maya, tried to help. "Lena, he's trash," she said firmly. "You need to block him, move on." But how do you move on from someone who made you believe you were there forever? I couldn't. Not yet. Because something didn't add up. Why would he date me for over a year, meet my family, make promises, and then vanish into a wedding? The Ethan I knew wasn't impulsive. He was careful, calculated, which meant this wasn't sudden. This was planned. That realization changed everything. My grief turned to anger, and that anger turned into resolve. If Ethan thought he could break me and walk into his new life untouched, he was wrong. I wanted answers, and I was going to get them. So I did something I never imagined I'd do. I RSVP'd to his wedding as Lena Carter, guest of the groom. The next scene burned into my memory forever. the look on his face when he saw me walk into that grand hotel ballroom. His smile faltered. His fiancée's hand slipped slightly from his. And for the first time, Ethan Carter looked terrified, because the woman he'd buried in silence had just come back from the dead. He thought his wedding day would mark the start of his happily ever after, but for me, it was just the beginning of his downfall. When I stepped into that ballroom, every head turned. The air was heavy with music, laughter, and the scent of roses, but all I felt was the thundering of my heartbeat. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I belonged in that moment more than anyone else. I had dressed for war, a sleek black dress that hugged every curve, bold red lipstick, and heels that clicked like thunder on the marble floor. My pain had burned away my fear, leaving only fire behind. Ethan was standing at the center of it all, charming smile, crisp tuxedo, one hand resting over the woman beside him, Isabella Moore, his bride. She was beautiful, radiant even, with the kind of grace that could disarm anyone. But behind that beauty, I saw something else, pride, maybe arrogance. The same kind Ethan used to wear when he lied straight to my face. Their eyes met mine. For a second, time stopped. Ethan's confident smile faltered. I saw panic flash in his eyes before he quickly masked it with a polite grin, the kind meant for social appearances. "Lena," he mouthed, barely audible over the chatter. I tilted my head slightly and smiled, the kind of smile that said, "You didn't think I'd show up, did you?" The hostess approached me. "Good evening, ma'am. Can I help you find your seat?" I handed her the RSVP card. "Yes," I said calmly. "Lena Carter, guest of the groom." Her brows furrowed. "Of the groom?" I nodded. "That's correct." For a moment, she hesitated, but then smiled nervously and led me to a table near the front, close enough for Ethan to see me, but far enough that no one would question my presence. Perfect. I could feel his gaze burning into me all night. Every time he turned toward the crowd, he'd steal a glance my way. Isabella, blissfully unaware, chatted with guests and flashed that picture-perfect smile for photographers. The irony was cruel. The man who once swore he couldn't live without me was now pretending I didn't exist, while I sat just 10 feet away. When dinner was announced, I saw him whisper something to his best man, probably trying to figure out what to do about me. Good. Let him sweat. I wasn't there to cause chaos. Not yet. I was there to watch him squirm, to make him feel that same helplessness he made me feel when he disappeared without a word. Maya's words echoed in my head. "If you're going to face him, don't go there to cry. Go there to win." So I smiled. I laughed with the people around me. I clinked my glass when the toast began. And every time Ethan looked my way, I raised my champagne flute slightly, a silent cheers to his lies. Halfway through the evening, a waiter brought me a note. I unfolded it carefully. "Meet me outside. 5 minutes. E." I smiled. The coward finally cracked. I stood, excused myself from the table, and walked out toward the terrace. The night air was cold, but I felt electric. Every step I took reminded me why I was there, to get the truth, to take back my power. When I stepped outside, Ethan was waiting. His jaw was tight, his hands shoved in his pockets like he was holding himself together. "Lena," he said in a low, urgent voice. "What the hell are you doing here?" I folded my arms. "Enjoying the party. You didn't think I'd miss your big day, did you?" "This isn't funny," he hissed. "You shouldn't have come." "Oh, really?" I tilted my head. "Then why invite me?" His eyes widened. "Invite you?" I didn't. I held up the golden invitation. "Then how did I get this, Ethan?" He went silent, his throat tightening. "Answer me," I said coldly. "You sent me this. Or someone did it for you. So which is it?" He ran a hand through his hair. "Lena, please. This is complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed bitterly. "You disappeared without a word. You let me believe we had a future. And then I find out you're marrying someone else? You owe me an explanation, Ethan." He looked around, checking if anyone was watching. Then he stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Lena, I never meant to hurt you. You weren't supposed to know about this." My heart sank. "Weren't supposed to know? What does that even mean?" He sighed. "It's not what you think. Isabella's marriage. It's part of a deal. A merger. My company needed this partnership to survive. I stared at him, stunned. So you're marrying her for business? He nodded slightly. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice, I whispered. You chose power over love. He reached for my hand. Lena, listen to me. I pulled away. Don't. Don't you dare touch me. His eyes softened. You were never supposed to get hurt. I wanted to tell you, but what, Ethan? You thought I'd disappear quietly? You thought I'd just forgive you someday? He swallowed hard. If you expose anything tonight, you'll ruin both of us. Please, just leave. I took a step back, shaking my head. You're unbelievable. You lied to me, used me, and now you want me to protect you? He said nothing. So I smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. Don't worry, Ethan. I won't ruin your wedding. I turned and began walking away, my heels echoing on the marble floor. He exhaled in relief. Not tonight, I added softly, just loud enough for him to hear. He froze. I didn't look back, but I could feel his fear, thick and real, clinging to the air like perfume. Back inside, the music had picked up again. Isabella was surrounded by guests, radiant and oblivious. I slipped back into my seat, calm and collected, even as a storm raged inside me. For the rest of the evening, I watched them dance, toast, and smile for the cameras. Every moment was perfect on the surface, but I saw through the cracks. Because I knew something neither of them expected. Tomorrow morning, the world would see the truth behind their perfect love story. And when it happened, Ethan would wish I'd just walked away quietly. He thought he could buy his happily ever after with lies and money, but by the time the sun rose, his empire would start to crumble. That night, when I got home from Ethan's wedding, I didn't cry. Not anymore. I'd already shed enough tears to fill a river, and now that river had turned into fire. All the pain, humiliation, and betrayal I felt had fused into something powerful. I wasn't going to be his victim anymore. I was going to be his lesson. As I kicked off my heels and sat on the couch, I opened my laptop and stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then I started typing. Because Ethan Carter had forgotten one thing. I knew him. Every password, every secret, every weakness. And I was done protecting him. It all started with one email. An email that wasn't meant for me. A few weeks before the wedding invitation arrived, Ethan had accidentally forwarded me a confidential document, a business contract between his company and Moore Enterprises. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But now that I knew he was marrying Isabella Moore, the name hit me like a thunderbolt. So that was it. He didn't fall in love. He negotiated it. Marriage as a merger. Love as leverage. And me? I was just collateral damage. But here's the twist. In that contract, I remembered seeing a clause about investment fraud coverage and a suspicious offshore account that had my name attached to it. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But now, I wasn't so sure. So I started digging. I opened my old email threads with Ethan, the ones where he'd asked me to help with some design projects for his company. Back then, I didn't question why he needed me to sign digital forms or use my business account for transactions. But now it all made sense. He had used my credentials to move money around, quietly, illegally, and if the authorities ever found out, I'd be the one left holding the bag. Oh, Ethan, I whispered to myself, you really picked the wrong woman to play. The next morning, I woke up early, poured myself a cup of coffee, and opened the wedding photos trending all over social media. There he was, Mr. Perfect, smiling, posing, kissing his new wife's forehead like he hadn't just destroyed someone's soul. Thousands of comments praising their love story. I stared at the screen until my reflection blurred into the image. If people loved fairy tales, I'd give them one. But mine would end with the prince losing his crown. My plan started small. Step 1. Gather evidence. I spent hours going through old files, screenshots, and call logs. I found voice notes, receipts, and forwarded documents that showed Ethan's company funneling money through shell accounts. And every single one of those accounts traced back to me, his knave girlfriend. Step 2. Confirm the Moore connection. It didn't take long. A quick public records search revealed that Isabella's father, Richard Moore, had invested heavily in Ethan's company 6 months ago. Their romance had started right after that deal. It wasn't love. It was a corporate contract dressed in wedding rings. Step 3. Leak the truth. But not yet. I wanted to do it in a way that would hurt. Publicly. Completely. That night, as I pieced everything together, I got a text. Unknown number. You shouldn't have come to the wedding. My chest tightened. Me. Who is this? Unknown. You made a mistake, Lena. Stay out of Ethan's life. I froze. The message wasn't from him. The tone was colder, more threatening. And then another message came. Unknown. You don't know who you're dealing with. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. For a moment, fear crept back in. But then, anger pushed it out. I typed back. Oh, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. The man who's about to lose everything. And I hit send. 2 days later, I went to see Maya. She listened in silence as I explained everything. The contract, the offshore account, the messages. When I was done, she leaned back on her couch, eyes wide. Lena, this is huge. You can't just drop this online. You could get dragged into it too. I know, I said. That's why I need to be smart. She frowned. What are you planning? I hesitated, then pulled out my phone and showed her a draft post, a long caption with screenshots of Ethan's emails, the contract snippets, and my story in my own words. Maya's jaw dropped. You're going to expose him? Yes, I said, my voice steady. But not on my account. That night, I sent the entire file to an anonymous business news page that specialized in scandals. I didn't include names, not yet. Just enough hints to make people curious. And it worked. Within hours, the post went viral. Rumors about a high-profile marriage hiding a business deal? Anonymous source claims wedding was a cover-up for fraud. Ethan's perfect image started to crack. He must have seen it, because the next morning, I got another message, this time from his number. Ethan. Lena, what have you done? Me. I told you. I wouldn't ruin your wedding. I'd ruin your peace. A few minutes later, my phone rang. His voice was low, furious. Do you realize what you've started? This could destroy me. I smiled. Then it's working. Lena, please. I can fix this. Just meet me one last time. I hesitated. Where? At the place where it all began. The cafe. He hung up before I could answer. I sat in silence for a long minute, staring at the phone. Part of me wanted to walk away. I'd already started the fire. Why risk stepping into it? But another part of me, the part that needed to see his downfall up close, said yes. So I got dressed, slipped my phone in my bag, and headed to that cafe. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting at our old corner table. For a brief second, I saw the man I fell in love with, the gentle smile, the familiar eyes. But it was just an illusion, because when he looked up, his eyes were dark, angry, desperate. Lena, he said softly, you need to stop this. Right now. I sat down, unflinching. Or what? He leaned closer, his tone icy. You think you're untouchable. You have no idea who's behind this deal. You're playing with people who don't forgive mistakes. I met his gaze and said, then it's a good thing I stopped making them. His jaw clenched. You'll regret this. I smiled faintly. You already do. I stood to leave, unaware that as I walked out of that cafe, someone in a black car across the street was taking pictures of me. And that meant one thing. This war was no longer just between me and Ethan. The next few days felt like living inside a storm. The anonymous post I leaked had exploded online. Business blogs, gossip channels, and even news outlets started digging into Ethan's company. Rumors swirled that his marriage to Isabella Moore wasn't real love, but a financial merger designed to secure her father's investment. And while the world speculated, Ethan stayed quiet. Too quiet. That silence scared me more than any of his words. Because Ethan was the kind of man who smiled before striking. 3 days after our meeting at the cafe, I was walking home from work when I felt it. That prickling sensation of being watched. I turned, but the street was empty. Only a dark sedan parked at the corner, engine still running. I brushed it off as paranoia. Until it showed up again the next day. And the day after that. It wasn't hard to guess who sent it. I decided not to play scared. I'd come too far to back down now. So that night, I went to Maya's apartment again. She opened the door and gasped. Lena, you look pale. What happened? I think someone's following me, I said, trying to sound calm. Her eyes widened. Ethan? Maybe. Or the people he works for. We sat down, and I told her everything. The car, the texts, the silence. Maya sighed. You need to go to the police. I can't, I said. Not yet. I don't have enough proof to tie it all together. I need to find something that links him to the fraud and the Moors directly. She shook her head. You're going to get hurt. Maybe, I said, staring at my phone. But at least I'll go down fighting. That night, I decided to break into the one place where Ethan still kept his secrets, his office. I knew his habits too well. Every Sunday night, he stayed late at the firm while Isabella was away at charity events. And every Sunday, his assistant left at 8 p.m., sharp. So I waited. At 8:10, I walked into the building, dressed like I belonged, crisp black blazer, hair tied, confident steps. I flashed a fake visitor badge and nodded at the security guard like I'd done it 100 times before. My heart was pounding, but I kept moving. When I reached his office on the 14th floor, I slipped inside quietly. His scent still lingered, cologne, coffee, and faint traces of the life I used to know. For a second, my chest tightened with memories. But I pushed them aside. I wasn't here for nostalgia. I sat at his desk and turned on the computer. Password protected. Of course. But Ethan was predictable. He always used personal things as passwords, sentimental enough to be clever, but not clever enough to fool me. So I typed the first thing that came to mind. Lena 2021. And just like that, I was in. The files were endless. Contracts, invoices, investor lists, offshore transfers. I scanned through document after document until I found one that made my blood run cold. Project Iris. Merger asset allocation. Inside, it clearly stated that Isabella's father had gifted Ethan's company $3 million as part of their engagement consolidation agreement. There it was. Proof that his marriage was a business transaction. But what caught my eye next made my hands tremble. Another transfer under my name. $250,000 sent to an account in the Cayman Islands 2 months ago. Under my signature. He'd forged my authorization. If anyone investigated the company, I would be the one accused of money laundering. Oh my God, I whispered. I copied everything, files, screenshots, transaction lists, onto a flash drive. Just as I was ejecting it, I heard footsteps outside. My heart leapt into my throat. Someone was coming. I dove behind the large bookshelf just as the door opened. 2 voices entered. One was Ethan's. The other, unfamiliar. Are you sure the leak came from her? The stranger asked. Ethan sighed. She's the only one who had access to my old files. I thought she'd just cry and move on, but I guess I underestimated her. The other man laughed coldly. You always do. You better fix this, Carter. The Moors don't tolerate messes. I will, Ethan said, voice hard. She'll be silenced soon. Silenced. That word hit me like a slap. I gripped the flash drive so tightly it dug into my palm. My breath came fast and shallow. They stayed for a few more minutes before leaving. When the door finally closed, I waited. 1, 2, 3 minutes. Then ran. I didn't stop until I was in my car, trembling, gasping for air. He was planning to silence me. That meant everything I had. The proof, the flash drive, my life, was now a ticking bomb. The next morning, I called Maya. Lena, are you okay? She said as soon as she picked up. No, I whispered. He's dangerous. He's working with people who can make me disappear. Maya's voice wavered. Then you need to go to the police now. I will, I said, gripping the flash drive. But first I need the world to see who he really is. That afternoon, I walked into a small newsroom, the Beacon Herald. It wasn't a big outlet, but they had a reputation for publishing corporate scandals with evidence. The editor, a woman named Rachel, listened quietly as I told her everything. When I handed her the flash drive, she plugged it in, eyes scanning the files. After a long silence, she looked up. If what you're saying is true, this could bring down not just Ethan, but the entire Moore enterprise. Then let it burn, I said. Rachel nodded slowly. We'll verify everything and publish it. But Lena, once this goes live, there's no turning back. You'll be exposed too. I met her eyes. I've already been exposed to the man I loved, to betrayal, to pain. This time, I want to be exposed to the truth. That night, I got a call. Rachel's voice trembled. Lena, someone broke into our office. They stole the hard drive. My heart stopped. What? How? I don't know. But it's gone. I hung up, pacing the floor, panic clawing at me. They knew. Ethan knew. I ran to my desk to check the flash drive back up. But it was gone too. My apartment door creaked slightly open. And that's when I realized someone was inside. I froze. Every sound felt louder, my heartbeat, my breath, the hum of the refrigerator. Then a shadow moved down the hallway. It wasn't Ethan. It was someone bigger. He stopped at the doorway and in a low, calm voice said, "Miss Hart, my boss asked me to deliver a message." I swallowed hard. "And what's that?" He smirked. "Stop digging or you'll never make it to see the ending." He stepped back into the darkness and vanished, leaving my door slightly ajar. I collapsed against the wall, shaking. But then, slowly, something inside me hardened. Because now it wasn't just about heartbreak. It was about survival. I opened my phone and texted Rachel just one line. "They took the files. But I still have one copy left." And as I hit send, my reflection stared back from the dark window. Not the broken woman I once was, but the storm she had become. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the walls, every car outside, every whisper of wind, I thought it was him. But fear had stopped controlling me long ago. Now, it only fueled the fire. I spent the entire night piecing together my plan, the last move I would ever make against Ethan Carter. If he wanted silence, he would get noise. If he wanted control, I would give him chaos. This time, I wasn't going to run. I was going to end it. By sunrise, I was already driving out of the city. The flash drive I'd hidden wasn't the only copy. Months ago, before I even sent that anonymous leak, I'd stored the original files in a private cloud, encrypted under an alias Ethan didn't know existed. L. Hartson. I wasn't just smart. I was careful. When you've loved a manipulator long enough, you start learning their tricks. My destination was the Metropolitan Grand Hotel, the venue of Ethan and Isabella's upcoming wedding. I wasn't there to ruin it with screaming or tears. No, I had a far bigger stage in mind. As soon as I arrived, I blended in with the event planners. Nobody questioned me. A clipboard and confident stride can open more doors than a key. Inside the ballroom, decorators were setting up white roses, crystal chandeliers, and a massive LED screen that would play their love story montage. Ironically, that screen was about to tell the real love story, the one built on lies. Later that afternoon, I met Rachel, the journalist from the Beacon Herald, at a nearby cafe. She looked exhausted, shaken. "I thought you said the files were stolen," she said, eyes darting nervously. "They were," I replied. "But I had a backup, and I'm not waiting for them to print it." Rachel frowned. "What are you planning?" I smiled faintly. "A live premiere." When I explained the plan, she hesitated, then slowly nodded. "You're brave or completely insane." "Maybe both," I said softly. "But either way, he's not walking away clean." 2 days later, the day of the wedding, I stood outside the same hotel in a black dress, blending in with the guests and vendors. The security was tight. High-profile guests, politicians, and investors filled the lobby. Everyone was smiling, unaware that by the end of the day, those smiles would vanish. I waited until the ceremony began. The doors to the ballroom closed, music swelled, and Ethan appeared at the altar in his perfect suit, wearing the same disarming smile that once melted my heart. And across from him stood Isabella, beautiful, poised, completely oblivious to the man she was marrying. As the vows began, I slipped behind the tech booth. The screen operator, a young man in a headset, was prepping the video cue. I handed him a flash drive labeled Wedding Slideshow, updated. "Bride's request," I whispered with a charming grin. He nodded and plugged it in. And just like that, I disappeared into the crowd. The ceremony ended with applause. The reception began with champagne. And then, the lights dimmed. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, "please enjoy a short video celebrating the beautiful love story of Ethan and Isabella." The screen flickered. Soft piano music started. Photos of them laughing appeared. Then suddenly, the music cut. The next image made the crowd gasp. An email screenshot. Subject line: Wire confirmation project Iris. Sender: Ethan Carter. The video continued: contract documents, secret payments, emails between Ethan and the Moores negotiating marital partnership terms. Then came the clincher: security footage of Ethan at a luxury apartment. My apartment. Kissing me, holding me, telling me he loved me. The guests erupted into shocked murmurs. Isabella's hand flew to her mouth. Ethan's face went white. "Turn it off," he shouted, rushing toward the screen. But it was too late. The final slide appeared, a single sentence in bold. He said he loved me, but his wedding invitation broke my soul. And beneath it, my name: Lena Hart. Chaos exploded in the room. Cameras flashed. Journalists, who'd been invited as part of the PR coverage, started shouting questions. Isabella ripped off her veil, trembling with rage and humiliation. Ethan grabbed a mic, his voice cracking. "This is fake. It's a setup. She's obsessed." But his voice drowned under the crowd's roar. I stood near the back, calm, watching it all unfold. He saw me then, across the room. For a moment, our eyes locked. His expression was pure hatred. Mine was peace. Because for the first time, I didn't feel small under his gaze. I felt free. Later that night, the video went viral. Every news outlet ran it. Every platform dissected it. The Moores canceled the wedding immediately, publicly distancing themselves from Ethan's company. Within 24 hours, his investors pulled out. His firm collapsed. He went from a media darling to a corporate pariah overnight. And me? I disappeared. Not out of fear this time, but because I didn't need the world's applause. I had my closure. Weeks later, I sat at a quiet seaside cafe, sipping coffee, watching the waves. Maya joined me, smiling gently. "So what now?" I exhaled. "Now, I start over." She grinned. "After everything you've been through, that's brave." "Maybe. But you know what's braver?" I said, staring at the ocean. "Letting go of a man who taught you to hate yourself, and choosing to love yourself instead." A notification buzzed on my phone. A news alert: Ethan Carter under federal investigation for corporate fraud. I smiled faintly and locked the screen. Justice, I thought, sometimes doesn't come from the courts. Sometimes it comes from a broken heart that refused to stay quiet. As I stood to leave, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky gold and crimson. A woman nearby recognized me and whispered, "Are you Lena Hart?" I turned, smiled softly, and said, "I used to be." Then I walked away, free, whole, and finally, unbroken. THND.